right, so let's get started, okay? So good afternoon, and thank you for dropping by, because I'm sure there are a lot of exciting events, activities happening today on our Info Day, and you still chose to join us, so thank you all the more for coming in, okay? So just a brief announcement. So there's a slight change in programming. So we'll be, in fact, moving from the 19th century as promoted on the pamphlets to the future, okay? To science fiction and the futures that it promises and that it ushers in. So in the following 30 minutes, you'll be spending time with me. I'm Dr. Carolyn Lau, okay, from the Department of English. And we are going to have a very short introduction, because we only have 30 minutes, but to this fascinating field and type of literature, science fiction, okay, a very timely and timeless literary genre. And so here are today's objectives, okay? First, I'm going to introduce you all to the literary genre of science fiction, okay, also known for its short form sci-fi or SF. Then we're going to examine the intersections of science and fiction in a very influential and canonical work and author in science fiction, Isaac Asimov. Okay, some of you might have heard of his name previously, but he's most well known for coming up with what is known as the 3 laws of robotics. Okay, as you can see, it is in fact an element in literature, in fiction, but it became something that influences our reality, our real life, and we'll see how this is the case, okay? And finally, you'll also have some time to create your very own 3 laws of robotics. And so when we study literature, we spend a lot of time not only analyzing literary text, and in my courses, we also study and analyze films as text as well, okay? But when we study literature, we are also very much interested in understanding the definitions of different types of literature, okay? What are the characteristics of different types of literature? And from then on, what does each type of literature do, okay? What is its function? So what is science fiction, okay? So this is a question that we have to ask before we look into science fiction. So what is it exactly, okay? And here I have listed some of the questions that people and my students will ask me, okay, whenever they come in. So is science fiction referring to fiction about aliens and spaceships? Okay, some people might say that Star Wars is science fiction, although I will dispute that. Is it fiction about time travel? Okay, so time travel is very popular in TV dramas, in cinema, of course, in fiction and literature as well. So is science fiction referring to fiction about time traveling? Okay, and at this point, critics, scholars will come in and argue that fiction about aliens and time travel are not science fiction because they think that science fiction has to be about existing real-life science and tech, okay? But then we have other critics come in and argue that, well, but time travel, stories about time travel, is in fact based on current real-life developments in quantum physics, okay? So does that make time travel fiction entirely false or fake in this sense, okay? Similarly, aliens and spaceships, you might say that, well, they are not really about existing science and tech, but when we look at stories about aliens and spaceships, we're in fact also talking about astrophysics, okay? So depending and going back to real life developments in space exploration. And again, we have another take on the definition of science fiction. Well, perhaps it does not have to be existing real-life science and tech. Perhaps we can broaden the scope a bit and say that fiction about speculative, okay, imaginary science and tech can also be considered as a type of science fiction. And the reason why I'm throwing you all these questions is because very interestingly, in the literary field of science fiction studies, there is no one fixed, definite consensus or definition about what science fiction is. And therefore, it is what makes this field so fascinating and so rich and also ever growing. But in my courses and for my students' sake, I always go back to a definition, or one of the definitions and approaches to science fiction proposed by the literary scholar Cheryl Vint. Okay? And here's what she says. Science fiction describes a way of thinking and perceiving, a toolbox of methods for conceptualizing, and I think very interestingly, intervening in. Okay? So science fiction intervenes in your everyday reality. And as we'll see very shortly, it also intervenes in real-life science and technology developments and living through rapid and widespread social technical change, okay? And I think we all now are very much used to seeing newspaper headlines about how ChatGPT is going to replace the workforce, how robots are also going to replace service industry workers, and we also have all these AI scare about how they might infringe on our privacy and so on and so forth, right? And so we are really living in what we call a social technical age, okay? And for me, science fiction is very valuable in the sense that it is the only literary genre, okay, meaning a type of literature, that actively engages in thinking, in conceptualizing, in intervening in the ongoing social technical age, okay? Therefore, it really confronts the world that we are living in today. And today, I just want to focus on a very interesting, but I think also representative example of how science fiction is a type of fiction that brings together different disciplines. And in our department, we also are very much interested in what we call interdisciplinary studies, okay? Bringing together literature and other areas of study. And for my research and in my courses, I'm specifically interested in how science and the humanities, okay, with a focus on literature, come together. And so science fiction naturally is the most obvious example of such, okay? The coming together of science and fiction. And today I just want to use this one specific example, okay? Isaac Asimov's 3 Laws of Robotics, to illustrate how science and fiction come together. Now, Asimov is a very interesting figure. So he's an American scientist, but also a sci-fi writer himself. And he proposed these 3 laws of robotics in his short story Runaround. And notice when it was published, okay, 1942, almost a century ago from now, okay? And in this collection called I, Robot, okay? And these 3 laws of robotics are really about how robots should obey, okay, these 3 laws in their interaction with human beings. And as you can see, the first law very quickly, a robot should not injure a human being, okay? A robot, therefore, should protect a human being. And second, a robot must obey the orders of human beings, okay? And third, the robot should also protect, very interestingly, its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So what these 3 laws that first happen in a work of fiction, okay? So these 3 laws happen as a plot or elements of a plot in a short story. These 3 laws, in fact, ended up influencing the world that we're living in today. And why is that the case? Okay, so in Asimov stories, humans occupy a superior position, okay, as creators, users, while the robots have to serve, okay, the interest and protect the interest of the human masters. And these laws continue to serve as a basic premise for our today's expectations and even popular imaginings about the relationship between humans and artificial intelligence, okay, also known as AI. Now, the preservation of human uses designated by Asimov's 3 laws of robotics reveals really our human anxieties about the threat of AI domination, and from then on, human obsolescence, okay, how we might become irrelevant or being replaced by AI. And here I've listed examples, okay, as mentioned, robots replacing waiters, and very alarmingly, I think, to English majors or those of you who are interested in creative writing, we do have this scare about ChatGPT replacing authors as well, okay, because they are writing poems, they're writing novels so well that sometimes even critics can't tell the difference between a human author and an AI author, okay? And ultimately, Asimov's three laws continue to influence not only our imaginings of how we will live in a world with AI, but it continues to influence scientists and technologists in contemporary developments, okay, in their design, in their production, in their research in AI and digital technologies. And so we move on to today's class forum, okay? So I prepared an activity for you all. So here, recall Asimov's three laws of robotics, okay? And I've listed them here. Please work in pairs or small groups, okay? Make sure you have someone to talk to. Your task is this, okay? Draft one law of robotics, but this time, as I've highlighted here, from the perspective of a robot, okay? So your phrasing of your law should be this: a human may not or must do something, so on and so forth, to a robot, okay? Now write down your response on the Department of English notepad sheet. I'm sure you all have a notepad souvenir with you, okay? And please put down your full name and initials of your school on the back as follows. And I will give you some time to work on this, and then we will hear from some of you, okay? Please raise your hand if you need a notepad or if you need a pen, and our helpers will come to you, okay? Yep, I think a student over there. Yes. I will remind them to drop their responses into the box when they head out. Okay, I can see that some of you are making good progress. Okay, some of you are already scribbling down your take on this. So please start writing, okay, and try to wrap up your laws, okay, because we will have to hear from some of you. Would you like to start first? to kickstart first. All right, now. Okay, please wrap up your responses, and we'll start off today's forum with a contribution from our student helpers who very diligently also worked on the question, okay? So let's hear from them. Please also tell us your names first before you start your sharing, okay?
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm Maisie, and what I wrote is a human must not destroy a robot.
Ah, okay. Thank you. A human must not destroy a robot. Can you say a few words on what makes you come up with this law? Some of your inspirations behind.
Because of the three laws proposed by Asimov are like rules that wants to create an atmosphere that the robots respect humans, and so I think we have to make a rule that is reversed, whereas the robots have to respect humans, and so they kind of coexist in the world.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Macy. So your law is this, that a human should not destroy a robot, okay? And it's in fact a reverse of some of the assumptions behind Asimov's three laws, okay? Because in this case, it's really about how the robot and humans can exist on a more equal basis, okay? So thank you. Perhaps let's hear from someone from the left side of the room first. Any volunteers from the left side of the room? Please raise your hand. I'm sure you've written something down. Please tell us your name first.
I'm Edwin from, and I wrote down a human may not rewrite the algorithms of a robot in a harmful way.
Can you explain a bit, how you came up with this law?
Because I have seen some sci-fi movies with droids attacking humans or planning a so-called evil plan to destroy the human beings. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Edwin. Very interesting observation, okay? So Edwin, in fact, referred to science fiction films that he has seen previously, right? And then he thinks that in those films, there seems to be quite a destructive relationship existing between humans and robots. But very interestingly, your law is in fact kind of a reversal of that, right? Because here in this case, a human must not rewrite the algorithms of a robot, okay? Perhaps even if the robot might be meaning harm, the human still cannot rewrite its algorithms, right? Okay, so quite an interesting twist. Okay, any further comments? Yes, thank you. Yes, my student helper will come to you. Please tell us your name.
I am Corinne, and
Hello.
the rule I wrote is kind of similar to that one, but it's kind of different too. It is that a human must not change the base code of a robot without written permission from the government.
Oh, can you elaborate a bit on this? Quite an original law.
Because I've heard a bit of the works of Kafka, and it's like bureaucracy and government kind of thing, and I was thinking if this could be adapted to some science fiction concepts too, I think.
Okay, Kafka, right? So talking about identities and mistaken identities. Anyone also came across the work of Franz Kafka? Oh, several. Where did you come across Kafka? I was just wondering. Is it part of your leisure reading? Okay. Franz Kafka, okay, so the Czech author of a very famous short story, Metamorphosis, talking about a human being suddenly finds himself turned into a cockroach early in the morning, okay? Please check it out, a very major and influential work of modern literature, okay? So thank you, a very original twist, okay? So from an existing literary work, you actually bring elements of that, okay? Mistaken identities is a theme that recurs in Kafka's fiction, okay? And you brought that into our reflections on AI, so that's very good. I think someone also raised his hand, yep, at the back first, and then we'll come to you, okay?
So I wrote that a human must not form emotional attachment with robots because presumably robots they do not die of old age. So if maybe if they make friends with a human or something, and if that humans die, their robot might be not in any condition to function properly.
Okay, what's your name?
Henry Poon.
Henry, okay. Henry created this law, okay, so talking about, in fact, quite serious issues of death and mortality in this case, right? Because we all know that robots, presumably, or AI in general, they can outlast a human being, okay? If you think about it in terms of the years of his life, because it could be repaired, okay, over the years, okay? So very interesting that a human must not develop any emotional attachments to a robot, okay? Because of perhaps the inevitable grief and sorrow that might involve in the parting of the two parties, okay? So again, building on some of your observations, because I think some of you are envisioning a more equal relationship between humans and robots, okay? Very different from ordering of human-robot relationships. I believe you also raised your hand.
Hi, I'm Alina, and the law that I drafted was a human may not compel a robot to engage in self-destructive behavior. My law may seem a bit redundant, but I think it fills in the gaps between the second and the third law by placing the onus on the human being to deliver coherent and respectful orders towards a robot, and that a robot has a sort of right to exist, not simply a duty to protect its own existence, but rather the fact that it has a right to live similar.
I think that's a very perceptive observation. So talking about the rights of robots, okay? If we have human rights, can robots have robot rights? In fact, in the UN, as you referenced, there's ongoing work, okay, in the real United Nations, okay, drafting bills about robot rights, okay? And your idea actually also brings us to greater issues of consciousness and okay, can a robot develop consciousness so that it wants to attain its right to live? Okay, and that also brings us to debates about free will as well. So thank you. Any further thoughts, really? Oh, that's wonderful. Perhaps we'll hear from someone from this block first, and then we'll move to this block, okay? Maybe you at the front first, and then you at the back.
Hello, I'm Pius, and
Yes.
I wrote that human beings should not abandon robots with defects, and then the creature, because the creature was so ugly, like physical defects.
Yes.
And the creatures were eternal hatred to human beings. So
Yes.
it sort of brings a threat to the society, and I think that we should also not abandon them in order that our society would be safe.
Okay, thank you. You're Henry, right? Pius. Oh, sorry, Pius. Yes, Pius. Referencing to Frankenstein, anyone also read Frankenstein? Okay, yes, even not in its entirety. You may have already come across the story. But I think Pius's observation is in fact also very timely and important as well. Okay, so talking about love, really, right? How to retain and maintain a relationship out of love, even though you might realize that the robot that you own, for instance, is already suffering from defects, okay, whether you should abandon this or not. And this also brings us to greater issues of ethics, really, okay, and morality. So it's an ethical issue, and in studies of AI, we also have this field of robot ethics, okay, touching upon very similar issues as well, okay. So thank you, Pius. I believe there are several hands raised just now as well. Yes, you?
Sorry, my name is Cherry, and mine is also about morality. And the rule is a command issued by a human must follow moral standards. And when two theory is in conflict, we should the robot should follow the theory of consequentialism.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting echoes already. I hope you can all hear your ideas, right? Because you realize that there are fascinating echoes across different laws already, okay? So thank you also touching upon ethical issues, okay, in our engagement with robots as another species, okay? And we can hear from someone from this block, yes?
Hello, I'm Erica, and the one I drafted was pretty short, actually. A human must use a robot.
Oh, a human must use a robot, okay. Yeah. So quite similar to Asimov's then in this case, right?
Not really. In Asimov's case, must obey the orders. It means that if a human doesn't give an order, the robot just kind of stands there.
Ah, I see
But
what you
then
mean.
here I'm suggesting that a human must give a sense of purpose to the robot, like the robot has to do something.
Oh, okay. Okay, so quite similar to observations about the consciousness of robots then. Okay, so you're assuming that the robots could develop this awareness that they have to do something, okay? And any further thoughts from this block of the room before we wrap up? Yes?
My name is Vanessa, and our rule is a human must not allow a robot to injure another human being / robot through a command or through inaction. And this is actually like slightly different from everyone else's because it's we still like in this rule still implies that a robot is like subservient to a human. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think further building on Asimov's 3 laws, okay? So thank you so much for all your sharing. And I hope this exercise also gets you into the mood of creative writing as well, because in our department, we also offer the stream of creative writing, okay? And in fact, we have also prepared anthologies of our students' work in previous creative writing courses and programs, so feel free to get a copy before you head out, okay? And just to really sum up and wrap up today's sharing, I want to share with you all this quote, a favorite quote of mine by the British science fiction author J.G. Ballard. And here he is reflecting on why it is important for us to read and write science fiction. And coming from him, okay, he's a science fiction author himself. And he also reminds us of the value of science fiction. So he says, I wanted to write about change and possibility. So that's what science fiction is really about. And I wanted to write about the next 5 minutes and not the last 30 years, okay? I wanted a science fiction for the present day. The future was a better key to the present than the past. One had to look at the next 5 minutes to understand what was going on now, okay? So this future-oriented perspective of science fiction is also what makes it a hopeful and utopian genre as well. And so to sum up today's sharing, I've introduced you all to the literary genre of science fiction. We have examined the intersections of science and fiction with specific focus on Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. And you've also created your very own 3 laws of robotics with a twist. And for those of you who are interested in further exploring some of the topics we've discussed today, I've included some very interesting links for you to venture into, okay? And finally, if you want to continue our conversation today, or if you have any other questions regarding our program or studying literature, do get in touch with me, okay? So here's my contact. And so that's really it from me, okay? So thanks again for coming in. Thank you so much for your contributions. It's wonderful meeting you all here. And before we go, I wish you all the very best in your future endeavors, and I hope to see you, well, some of you at least, in the near future, all right? And so before you go, please do get an anthology and also drop your responses into the box. You might want to take a quick photo of your response, though, as a memorabilia, okay? So take a quick photo of your law, okay? And do save it on your phone. Take it out when you want to, further think about the 3 laws of robotics and the many really serious and timely issues that you've all discussed today, okay? So take a quick photo of your work, and when you're done, drop your responses into the box at the front, okay?